All right, so I want to revisit a topic that got me into a lot of trouble last year, and that was this theory, this conspiracy, this notion, this hallucination that right-wing figures, mainly just straight up white supremacist, like the great replacement theory types, concocted that white South Afrikaners were being genocided. There was a white genocide going on in South Africa, and we needed to take in all those white South Afrikaner refugees. That's what the executive order stated. Now later they did change the embassy's website to say like white South Afrikaners and other groups. Like it's so like transparently like just we want white people in, and we want to deport and get rid of all the brown people. That is just what this is, because what they said during this was like, oh, the conditions in South Africa are the textbook definition of like somewhere where you could seek refuge from. And at the same time, they were revoking TPS status from people who came from Haiti or Cuba or Afghanistan or Venezuela. And they sent all these people back, or they're trying to send all these people back, like hundreds of thousands, if not millions, mind you, who had legal status, because the conditions in those countries have improved. Bitch, Haiti hasn't improved. Afghanistan's still under control by the Taliban. Like, what are you talking about? We have a blockade. We are starving Cuba. But the conditions approved. We need to get rid of them. But South Africa, we need to take the white South Afrikaners in because they're being genocided. Like my fucking ass. This is crime only matters when it's against white people. Discrimination only matters when it's against white people. There is no systemic, like, I don't know how to make this more clear, but there is no systemic, and we're talking about the U.S. right now, just mind you. There is no systemic or institutionalized racism or biasness against whites or Christians. Like, that is completely made up. And you can see like how this administration treats people of color versus people who are white. They arrested Don Lemon, a journalist, for covering a protest in a church, and they tried to indict him on like Ku Klux Klan era laws, because he was like discriminating against white people or white Christians or some shit. And the Nike lawsuit, Nike, I have my woke gay Nike hat on. There's an ongoing lawsuit about like reverse racism against white people. And then there's just a whole lot of DEI lawsuits going on right now. But like that's just the mindset that these people are in. Now, does South Africa have an immensely high crime rate? Yes. But is there some targeted genocide against white people? No. People who are dying are overwhelmingly black people. Yeah, I said it. It's true. But yet again, in the eyes of the Trump administration and these white supremacist freaks, it's only white people who are being targeted and genocided, and they're the only victims. Anyways, okay, I rambled enough. I just need to set the stage there because it's so dumb, man. South Africans dispute Trump's claim of genocide as administration welcomes some to U.S. as refugees. So this is a pretty lengthy article here. It's very interesting. It's from CBS News, which makes it even more interested because they are essentially like the Fox News 2.0. They are owned and operated. Well, they're operated by Barry Wise, who is might as well just be in the Trump administration at this point. Anyways, Darrell Brown's father was attacked by robbers 10 years ago. Since then, 3 of his friends, fellow South African farmers, were murdered on their farms nearby. But Brown has no intention of leaving his home country, even as the Trump administration welcomes white South Africans to the United States as refugees. I'm an African, and I've been burned by the African sun. I'm not going anywhere. In February 2025, President Trump signed an executive order cutting off all aid to South Africa. Yes, because that's going to make like the conditions on the ground and the crime rate, that's going to make it better. And announcing the resettlement of Afrikaner refugees escaping government-sponsored race-based discrimination. All made up, all bullshit. Mr. Trump has claimed that white South Africans, including Afrikaners, the 2.7 million descendants of Dutch settlers who arrived on the continent 400 years ago and committed their own genocide. It didn't say that part, but are victims of a genocide and their land is being confiscated. But in South Africa, those claims are disputed. Max du Preez, an Afrikaans journalist and former newspaper editor, called his country's government corrupt, but said he's never been discriminated against as a white South African. There are no large-scale killings of farmers, and the government is not seizing their land, he said. Now, this part, I believe there are some pretty, like, there is a moderate amount of killing of farmers, but it's not just white farmers. It's white farmers, black farmers. In fact, there's not many like black farm owners because it's still some crazy number, like 70 to 80% of all land owned in South Africa is owned by white people. Like these South Afrikaners, they own most of the land. So most of the people getting killed are like farmhands that they hire. It is not happening. He said Donald Trump was fed this information, this link, farm murders, genocide. There is no such a thing, but it plays in Washington. How claims of genocide originated in 1913, millions of black South Africans were forcibly evicted from their land and lost their rights to it by law. Then in 1948, Afrikaners instituted apartheid, a brutal system of racial segregation and discrimination against the mostly black population. Apartheid ended in 1994 when South Africans elected Nelson Mandela as president. In the years since, there's been a growing black middle class and a reduction in poverty. But controversial government efforts to readdress inequalities have been plagued by corruption and cronyism. Many Afrikaners believe that they are now the victims of discrimination in post-apartheid South Africa and point the blame at affirmative action policies meant to readdress centuries of discrimination. White supremacists in the U.S. and elsewhere have long amplified those beliefs and have for years made false claims of genocide in South Africa. In 2018, then Fox News host Tucker Carlson began alleging that Afrikaner farmers were being killed and having their land seized. That is not true. There is a law where the government can seize land at will. But they haven't done it. They haven't actually enforced that law. That got the attentions of Mr. Trump, who at the time tweeted about large-scale killings of white farmers in South Africa and the government seizure of their land. After Mr. Trump signed the executive order promoting the resettlement of Afrikaner refugees, South Africa President Cyril Ramaphosa came to the White House to reset trade and economic relations. Mr. Trump showed several videos that the White House said were proof of violence against the targeting of white farmers, and all of these were just straight up debunked. Not a single one was factual or true. There are burial sites right here, burial sites, over 1,000 of white farmers, Mr. Trump said during a meeting. What Afrikaners say about the genocide claims. 60 Minutes correspondent Anderson Cooper traveled to the spot Mr. Trump was talking about, a lonely pothole-filled road not far from Daryl Brown's farm, the person we were talking about in the beginning of this article, in the rolling hills of KwaZulu, Natal province in the southeast of South Africa. Brown is the one who placed the crosses seen in the video shown by Mr. Trump on the road. He put them there on the day his friends Glenn and Vida Rafferty's funeral, the couple who were murdered during a 2020 robbery. It definitely wasn't a burial site, Brown said. Those crosses were there for less than 48 hours. It was purely an avenue of crosses that we planted there in honor of commercial farmers in South Africa that had lost their lives. Brown kept the crosses in his shed, then brought them out again in 2024 for the funeral of his best friend, Tali Nell, who was murdered on his farm. Nell was killed in front of his wife, Renee, as he tried to fight off burglars. Their son, Theonis, was tied up while the burglars stole the cash and guns. No one has been arrested. Theonis now runs the farm and carries a weapon with him almost at all times. The Nells have hired private security guards and fortified their property with electric fences and cameras. They say they can't rely on the country's ineffective and overwhelmed police to keep them safe. Despite losing her husband, is it Reen? Reen now doesn't feel Mr. Trump's use of the word genocide appropriate. Not what I know is genocide, not what I've seen is genocide, not what I've heard what a genocide is. So you have this white person who have quite literally had family members murdered, and even they are like, this isn't a genocide. This is a crime issue. And how did she come to this conclusion? Because I don't know, probably because she's lived there and she's seen that not only does it affect white people, it also affects black people too, because crime is just affecting everyone there. It is no specific group or religion. She views it as a crime of opportunity by people who knew there was money and firearms on the farm. Crimes in South Africa. South Africa is one of the most dangerous countries in the world. The murder rate is 7 times that of the United States, according to police. More than 25,000 people were murdered in the country in 2024. It's estimated 37 people were killed on farms. According to an agricultural economist, Wandile Salobo, the overwhelming number of farmers and those working on farms in South Africa are black. The white farmers may have a bigger part of the proportion of income, said Salobo, but the vast majority of people operating the farms in South Africa are black. He adds that black farmers and farm workers are victims of violence too. In the first quarter of 2025, South African police recorded 6 murders on farms. 5 of the victims were black. So 6 murders, 5 of 6 were black. But no. That one white person who was murdered, they are the ones being genocided. What are you talking about? There are a lot of black farmers that are attacked and their voices are not out. South Africa remains one of the world's most economically unequal countries. About 44% of the black population lives in poverty compared to 1% of the whites. That poverty is the country's biggest driver of crime, according to Joanne Kotze, an Afrikaner who is head of South Africa's largest agricultural organization. Kotze traveled to Washington last February to explain to administration officials what he says is happening in the country. He was shocked when they asked him about white genocide. The first thing I said, I'm as Afrikaans is what you can get. I grew up Afrikaans, Kotze said, and I never witnessed that. Now, of course, despite this, like an actual investigative piece from CBS News coming out, and people saying that, like, hey, there is no genocide here, and despite providing statistics saying why this is a crime issue and crime is affecting, if anyone, black people way more than white people, proportionally and like statistically, just overall in raw numbers speaking, the only people they care about are the whites. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. But like, despite all this, they'll like fucking have one fucking white Afrikaner hog who immigrates to the US, who comes here as a refugee, and be like, it was so awful. They're genociding all the white people. Like, but like evidence on the ground and actual reputable sources and independent investigators, not just CBS, but independent organizations, global organizations, no one has deemed this a genocide. The consensus is high crime that is not affecting one race or the other. If anything, it's affecting black people more. But it just, oh, we're so silly. We're such a silly country. Like just a literal fucking white supremacist pedo-run country. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and I will see you in the next one. If you made it to this point in the video, I just want to give a special thank you. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button down below, and if you really enjoyed it, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button while you're down there. I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. I will try to reply to any and all comments that I can. Until next time, watch that video on screen.